Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Pulp Crazy. I'm your host, Jason Aiken. In this week's episode, I'm going to be discussing Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens. This film was released nationwide in the United States on December 17th, 2015. I went to see it with my dad and my cousin on December 18th. And we'll devote this last Pulp Crazy episode of 2015 to reviewing it and discussing it as well. I figured it would be appropriate for Pulp Crazy because George Lucas didn't create Star Wars in a vacuum. The pulp science fantasy works of Edgar Rice Burroughs, Doc Smith, and Leigh Brackett are without a doubt in the D.N.A. of Star Wars. Just gonna be upfront about this. In this episode there will be spoilers. So, you've been warned. I wouldn't watch this until after you've seen the movie, unless you don't care about the spoilers. I'm going to break down what I feel are the pros and cons of The Force Awakens. I'll start with the biggest con, but before I do, keep in mind, I really like this movie. To me, the biggest drawback with The Force Awakens is the predictable plot. You see, The Force Awakens, plot-wise, is basically a remake of Star Wars Episode IV, A New Hope. And, I'm sorry, but I signed up for a sequel, not a reboot or a remake. The plot is so beat for beat similar to A New Hope that it's ridiculous, and it should really hurt the movie. But the rest of the film is so good, it manages to overcome this. Besides, maybe there's a canonical reason for following the plot of the first movie so closely. Perhaps the Force is giving the main cast a second chance at bringing balance, or whatever, to the galaxy. Or maybe the prequels were so horribly received that Disney and Abrams played it safe, and didn't just go back to the well. They dove in head first. The only other con I have is the lightsaber duels. I didn't think they were very well done. But given how most of the duelists in the film were beginners, I look for the fights to get better as the series goes on. But besides the recycled plot and mediocre saber duels, everything I loved about the original Star Wars trilogy, and no, I'm not talking about the prequels, are present in The Force Awakens. The first of which is the return to practically driven special effects. From what I could tell, the CGI in this movie was very minimal, especially when compared to the prequel trilogy. This was such a welcome return to the original Star Wars trilogy. Everything on the screen felt more or less real. No wonky CGI characters walking around amongst humans and other practical effects in the real world. The ships, aliens, and backgrounds all had substance to them. I'm really looking forward to getting this on Blu-ray and doing what I did as a kid, pausing each and every scene so I can observe what's happening in the background. With the original trilogy, I could always see a different droid, alien, or creature that I hadn't noticed before. But the major element that saved the film were the characters. Sure, the plot was cookie cutter, but the new and old characters were played and written so well, it more than made up for it. Harrison Ford and Peter Mayhew. What can you say about them? Those two are Han Solo and Chewbacca. They were great as always. I also thought that Carrie Fisher did a good job of playing General Leia. After all, she is General Leia. But for me, the new characters really shined. There were 4 new major characters that showed up in this movie. They seem to be where the focus of the series is, and will be for some time. The characters are Finn, a former stormtrooper who defects to the Resistance. Kylo Ren, a dark Force user with a red lightsaber. Poe Dameron, an ace Resistance pilot. And Rey, the main character of the film. She begins the film as a scavenger living on the desert planet of Jakku after being stranded there by her parents. Sounds somewhat familiar, doesn't it? I would probably rank them in that order too, as far as being the best new or most interesting new characters. Finn, Kylo Ren, Poe Dameron, and then Rey. But that's not taking anything away from Rey. But so far she's the most redundant out of the four newcomers, as she's basically an orphan growing up on a desert planet who gets drawn to the center stage of a galactic conflict. However, by the end of the movie, at the concluding scene specifically, well, let's just say things are probably going to be a bit different for her than they were for Luke in A New Hope, if the two of them are indeed father and daughter. So, sign me up for Rogue One, despite it being a prequel, and Episode VIII in the coming years. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan around, I mostly just stick to the films, but I'm interested in checking out some of the side stories featuring these new characters in novels and comics. But being a pulp fan, seeing how well the technology and aliens were depicted in this movie, it really makes me wish we'd see some classic pulp science fantasy brought to the big screen. Most of all, being more of Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter of Mars films. But I'd also like to see Leigh Brackett's Eric John Stark character and E.E. Doc Smith's Lensman series get the big screen treatment too, if they were done as well as this. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Pulp Crazy. This is the last episode of 2015, so I hope everyone has a happy holiday season and a happy new year. I'll see you in 2016. Pulp Crazy is located at pulpcrazy.com. I'm at Pulp Crazy on Twitter and facebook.com/pulpcrazy. My YouTube channel is located at youtube.com/pulpcrazy. You can also email me at pulpcrazy@gmail.com. My author website is jasonscottaiken.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.